Quantitative easing, or as it's more commonly known, one of the most complicated economic systems to this day. Indeed, many people have just dumbed it down and basically said that, in essence, it's just pumping money back into the system and printing more. But unfortunately, it's more complicated than that. Indeed, quantitative easing is a complicated economic system in which economists such as Ben Bernanke, a key participant in the Federal Reserve, and other constituents have actually had to plan out its every move afterwards. But unfortunately, it's not as easy as it seems. As a report from CBS of just yesterday goes on to report, this could only lead to even more catastrophes. As we can see, the quantitative easing cannot be seen on an omniscient perspective simply because it's too complicated. Even economists themselves can't understand the outcomes and results that are going to happen 30 years from now, or in countries such as Indonesia, in which it actually does have results. And therefore, because of one of the most complicated systems of economic easing, called quantitative easing, that has been instilled more than 5 times already, we have to ask ourselves today's question with the fate of the American economy hanging in the balance. So, should Ben Bernanke win down the economic easing, the quantitative easing policy? And the answer to this question is fortunately yes, for the following 3 reasons. First, because we're going to understand that it lowers pension policies for many constituents of the pension plan. Secondly, what we're going to notice is that it doesn't even do its job in lowering prices, especially for main commodities in the public sector. And lastly, what we're going to notice is that in the global market, we're going to see that unfortunately it leads to an unleveled playing field. So first, we're going to notice that unfortunately it lowers pension policies for many constituents of the pension plan. And the pension plan is basically those who are retired are basically given back money that they put back into the system. And unfortunately, this is going to lead to an even more corrupt system than it is now. Indeed, according to a report done by the Brookings Institution dated March of 2013, when the quantitative easing was at its peak, we see that one constituent had actually seen his pension check drop from $1,100 to a mere $600. And indeed, this had been a drastic measure for him to have to readjust his life depending on where the quantitative easing policy had led the pension plans to be. And indeed, the article goes on to elaborate that when focusing on pension plans, it has a direct correlation, although it may not seem so. And the reason for this is because of lowered interest rates. Indeed, lowered interest rates have a direct correlation, and many in the Federal Reserve have seen this as a measure of, well, if we're going to lower our interest rates, as many American citizens are asking for, we have to ask in something in return, and that is unfortunately going to be lowered pension plans. And according to the Washington Post of March 31st, 2013, they went on to state that, well, if many constituents of the pension plan are complaining about this, just utilize the interest rates that we're lowering. And unfortunately, according to that same report, only 12% of constituents and associates of the pension plan are actually utilizing the lowered interest rates and actually can utilize this. And therefore, unfortunately for the Federal Reserve, they're going to have to readjust this and wind down the policy, especially Ben Bernanke, who should in fact wind down the quantitative easing policy, because it's leading for a volatile market for those who are in the pension plan, and therefore it is a necessity for him to do so. Secondly, what we're going to have to look to is the fact that its main purpose to lower prices in America is unfortunately not going to work, especially because it only works for a short time. Indeed, according to a report from the New York Times dated April 21st, 2013, we see that the quantitative easing policy has only done its job for a short time. That is in fact the exact reason why quantitative easing has been instilled more than 5 times already. Indeed, when focusing on the quantitative easing policy, we have to unfortunately understand the quantitative easing and the printing of money is only for a short time, especially because of how volatile the market is. And unfortunately, it has not done its job 5 times. Indeed, its sole purpose has been to lower the prices of public sector commodities such as healthcare, loan rates, interest rates, and other public sector commodities. And therefore, because the public sector can't even do its job with quantitative easing, it's clear that its job has not been done. There needs to be an adjusting of the economy, as a Forbes article dated March of 2013 goes on to report. And therefore, because quantitative easing has not been utilized in its sole purpose, it clearly shows that there is a need for readjusting of our economy and not that of the quantitative easing policy itself. So lastly, what we're going to notice is that this is going to lead to a global, this is going to lead to the global economy on an unleveled playing field if in fact he does not wind down the policy. And the reason for this is cleared up by an article published by El Paso, and an article or a newspaper, a famous newspaper from Spain, dated May of 2013, that goes on to report that unfortunately, when looking at the economy in the eurozone, it's fortunate that in recent months we've seen that they have actually had a stunt in their unemployment rate. Due to the fact that the American economy went up. Indeed, the American economy went up due to quantitative easing in itself, and therefore the quantitative easing actually leads to a leveled playing field in countries in the eurozone, especially that of Italy, Spain, and Portugal, 3 main constituents in the actual recession in the recession that went on in the eurozone in 2011, 2012, and still going on to this day. And furthermore, we have to understand that according to a Harvard Business Journal dated just last week, we can clearly see that the quantitative easing policy has actually led to widespread economic recessions and a volatile market in many countries globally. Therefore, the United States, for the benefit of other countries and its main allies, have to in fact instill a positive outlook by winding down the quantitative easing policy. The United States has been let off on the quantitative easing policy in a positive note, and has quote-unquote left off on has actually had a good aftertaste, as many media sources are stating. So therefore, the United States has to wind down the quantitative easing policy because we left off on a good note. If the United States does not do so, it will be harming its constituents all across the world, and therefore it is a clear necessity to wind it. Therefore, for the 3 reasons that we've discussed, we have to understand that the quantitative easing policy must in fact be instilled. Must in fact be wind down.